Social media makes it very easy to criticize other people. The content creation space is full of dunking on, criticizing, talking about other people. And I think it should be kind of clear to us by now that this world that we feel all these negative things about, this online world, this offline world, all of it is not going to get better in the ways we want it to get better if we're not willing to criticize ourselves. And if we're not willing to take other people's criticism in a healthy way. That doesn't mean every time somebody criticizes you, they're right. And it doesn't mean that everything that gets passed off as criticism is actually criticism. But all of these subjects are quite relevant with regards to a video that has gone viral, absolutely viral recently by a content creator named Doothi. As you can see, this has over 500,000 views in about a little over a day. In this video, Doothi has a conversation about commentary channels. You know them, you might love them, you might not. I am often considered a commentary channel. When you see what my audience watches along with me, you will see that they also watch channels like D'Angelo Wallace or Brian Eclair. But the commentary category is a very vast one. It could span a lot of different things. My side of commentary YouTube, it's kind of unique to my channel and my channel alone, but it's especially interested in social and political analyses of contemporary social media discourse, of pop culture, of stuff like that. Oftentimes what I do too is have conversations about bigotries and biases, structural problems that affect specific marginalized people and why we should care about them. There are a few other channels that do versions of this. Even on my side of this world of commentary YouTube, there might be some channels that you find are a little bit lacking. They're not necessarily diving that deep into the subject matter. They maybe just are saying things that sound good and that sound like what everybody else is saying about the issue, but not really much unique or individual otherwise. And this seems to be something that people are feeling about commentary videos writ large. And I think that's part of why Doothi's video has been explosive and has had this big reaction. But the other reason, perhaps the main reason that this has blown up, is something quite related and is the reason why this is titled Commentaries Low-Key Bad Re-Upload. It's what she discusses in the first minute of the video. So we're going to start there, and then I want to hear your thoughts in the chat about what she's divulging.
Commentary YouTube is becoming slop. This video was taken down because I learned that large commentary creators had shared my video in their group chat and apparently got very upset about being criticized. As a small creator, this was obviously very intimidating. These people have a lot more money, connections, and followers than I do. I was asked to change my thumbnail. I was even asked by a featured commentary creator to unlist the video at only 3,000 views. I'm re-uploading this video that I spent 8 months on to implore you, the viewer, to watch this and form your own opinion. Was I too harsh, or are commentary YouTubers scared that people are waking up to slop content?
Oh, whoa, what's going on? One thing that I can commend Doothi for off the bat, without knowing who these content creators that she's referring to are necessarily, and without being very interested in drama with anybody, but I can commend Doothi for having the spirit of a critic, for being a bit confrontational, as Benny has said in the chat. There is a real desire on her part that I don't see from other content creators, which is a desire and a willingness to shake the table, even when it's about people who are generally very well liked, in a space that is generally well liked and non-controversial. You see, the commentary space is a huge space where a lot of people make pretty decent careers, sometimes pretty cushy middle and upper middle class living, sometimes get rich off of this space. And it's one where people form these parasocial bonds with content creators that can often have positive effects because parasociality is complicated. You can meet a lot of great people by both being fans of the same content creator. At the same time, I think when it comes to what's going on with that positivity and that cushiness in this space, that lends a lot to understanding why people may have responded so negatively in that content creator chat, allegedly, to this video. Because here you have somebody who's willing to say, you know what, y'all gotta do better. A person who's willing to kick some people in the knees a little bit. And who's not just going to say, well, I love this creator, but this creator is pretty great, but I think this person is really, really nice and probably has great intentions. And I like a lot of what they had to do, but is actually willing to, within some level of reason, say, no, like this thing you said is wrong. This thing you said is bad. This is a very vulnerable position to put yourself in. Because whatever critiques you follow with, if you're not couching them in this friendliness language, they're going to be scrutinized to hell, especially by people who have these parasocial bonds with these content creators you're criticizing. So I do have some critiques, and I'm not perfectly aligned with every single thing Doothi's saying in this video. And we'll talk about what potentially might have happened with the content creators at play after we watch the video, or the parts that I want to show you. But off rip, I just want to commend her for that. I want to commend Doothi for that, because we need critics. And even just before we go forward, there's something about this that's kind of like enjoyable for me as somebody who has in the past done critiques of other content creators, of other commentary channels, of other well-liked creators with large followings in centrist / left-leaning spaces. I've done that numerous times, and each time I haven't necessarily gotten a hate train for it, but I've seen the defensiveness, and I've also seen the kind of brick wall, which is honestly even more annoying in that you make a video, it gets a decent amount of views about another content creator respectfully critiquing their content, and they don't respond to it, and they don't seem to change as a result of it. So you just kind of feel like it's falling on deaf ears. And I think what Doothi does here, and being this confrontational, is she's made it something that can't be ignored as easily. Clearly this has become a very big thing. It's a big video. By allowing herself to take some hits for being, a slightly spicy critic, she is making this visible and loud to where it's like, okay, now the commentary YouTube channel space, for better or worse, is going to be feeling the effects, is going to be thinking about what she's saying, is going to be thinking about criticizing itself, and whether or not the commentary space is kind of flaccid right now, is kind of empty, kind of commodified right now. I will also say that there have been content creators aside from me before who have tried to do this kind of work. Unpoetic Justice tried to do this work. Somebody shouted out Soul Bunny, and that didn't get that much attention either. And part of it is because they come from marginalized backgrounds. In particular, Unpoetic Justice and Soul Bunny are black women, black femmes. Black women and black femmes can make very well articulated and very sharp critiques of things that people like a lot and have large audiences, and can essentially be played off or not even paid attention to. And there's some degree to which the way that I'm marginalized as the thing that I am, and how that contributes also. Let me be clear. There are certain times when I do think to myself, man, if I was just a straight up white guy with light brown or blonde hair and light eyes doing the exact same type of content, I can't imagine that I wouldn't be praised more. And that's not coming from somebody who's like, oh, I'm like so on the outside of the beauty the conventional beauty standard or whatever. Let me not go deeper in that before you guys think that I'm like glazing myself. Did Unpoetic Justice quit? I thought Unpoetic Justice had taken a break, but yeah, she had put out some good stuff. So yeah, I just ask that everybody be willing to sit in the uncomfortable. Somebody said that in the chat. The Heavy said it in the chat, sit in the uncomfortable. I think that that's a key part of what we're talking about today. This has been a bit of a long intro, but I wanted to get those things out of the way first before talking more about this substance. So I'm now going to start with the first point, which is the intro of her video that sort of summarizes the feeling that she's talking about. I'm going to ask you guys whether or not you feel like you relate to what she's saying.
You open up YouTube recommendations to find something to watch with your meal, but all your recommendations are about the same topic. It all feels like formulaic noise, like every video is identical and no one is saying anything anymore.
The TikTokification of the bizarre deep divification rabbit hole retrospective.
TikTok bad.
AI bad.
Influencer bad.
It feels, dare I say, corporate.
And that's why capitalism is not good. Anyway, today's sponsor is a scented water bottle subscription service.
So join me as I break down the slow, painful decline of commentary YouTube and deep dive this era I call There's Nothing Left to Say, Please Shut Up, Oh God Shut Up, It Hurts.
Woo! Again, Lady Gray says, I'll be honest, she's not wrong. Crunchy Skull, yup, yes I do. When I tell you that I have talked to a lot of people and seen a lot of people say commentary videos are essentially slop now, they're saying the same things over and over again, the ifification of this and overconsumption that, it's especially kind of harrowing because it's like stuff that feels a little progressive, right? And from generally progressive leaning people, it seems, right? But the things that they're saying don't seem that they're like that well thought out. And like, there's a lot of videos on YouTube that even can dress themselves up as, oh, this is an intellectual video. But then you look at what they're saying and it's like, oh, they didn't cite the theory correctly. They didn't seem to actually read this theorist. They just took a quote from that theorist or a concept that that theorist talks about and then just gave their vibe thoughts on what that is. There's a lot of stuff like that. And I don't want to be super mean about it, but I do think this is now a moment where it's like, okay, everybody got to get better right now. Everybody's got to get better right now. Tons of ifification for sure. Maybe they are just watching slop channels. Doesn't mean that well-written analysis doesn't exist. I think that, nice name by the way, Ducky Returns. I think that you can critique a rise in something without that reflecting that you just don't watch the right stuff, you know? A lot of the well-written stuff does exist, but it can be harder to find because the algorithm is so saturated with content that feels a lot more surface level. The commentary situation is insane. There's somebody in the comment section that was like, the insane situation is insane. Easy to block those, but they're prevalent, not gonna lie. Yeah, they're prevalent. And also a lot of the really well-written stuff is sometimes not commentary stuff. It's video essay stuff, which has its own issues, that space as well. A lot of this can reflect issues throughout YouTube. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about is something that Doothi mentions right around here. I'll just keep it playing. Really glad you're doing a response instead of advocating for deleting the vid. Man, are a lot of people advocating for her to delete the vid? That feels kind of mean. Also, let me just do a quick check. I've used she, her pronouns a lot. I can't see any social media apps. Well, we're gonna go she, her, I think. A lot of people are using she, her pronouns, but just being careful about that. Rico Pena asks, is it because YouTube isn't paying creators like they used to? This is a big part of it. The political economy part is relevant. Noah Samson is a white guy. Noah Samson admits that he's a white guy. Just because he's part Thai doesn't mean he's not a white guy. Just to be clear. And I'm a big fan of Noah Samson. Noah Samson knows that like whiteness is racialization, so to speak. We are so cooked, chat. That's one of my least favorite. Oh my gosh, whenever it's like a doomer, oh, we're so cooked. I can't believe how cooked we are. It just drives me nuts. Philosophical Archives, not sure about deleting the vid, but a lot of them are like, it doesn't have to be deep or we can't have fun now. Seen this before. Yeah, we're gonna see some critiques of this video that kind of fall into that category, or at least you might run into some. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the idea of commentary videos as background noise.
Watching commentary nowadays without doing some secondary action in the background, like laundry or eating, feels like when you remove the laugh track from a sitcom. Really sitting down and listening to what the creator is saying, you realize they aren't really saying anything. And as both a creator and viewer, I feel this heavier than anyone. When trying to come up with video ideas, I realize everything has kind of already been said. Ozempic is bad, plastic surgery is bad, AI is bad. Any video idea just felt like I was contributing to this collective whining on commentary YouTube. I'm sure we've all come across some video that promises to be some grand intellectual piece about the ification of an industrial complex perhaps, but it ends up just being more reaction meme surface skimming lighthearted commentary instead of actual substance.
So you notice that she's highlighting the idea of a video over promising and under delivering. So I think that's important to note because she'll make mention multiple times in this video of the idea that, you know, the lighthearted video deserves its own space and can be its own good work. And she's not saying that every single video that's a commentary on something has to be profound. That said, I do think if I'm going to give a critique early on that we might see reflected as we move forward, the scope is very large here. The assessments are very general. So it can be hard to make those points very saliently and clearly when you're not talking about just, you know, a specific group of people or a specific area in the commentary space. But I think that also is maybe just necessary in order to address what I'm saying is really a popular feeling. I think this is a popular feeling, which is like, okay, it's a little ambiguous. It's a little bit ephemeral, but a lot of people put on a commentary video of 40-50 minutes in length and then they hear it and 10-20 minutes in it's a lot of filler and it's a lot of nothing in their minds. It's not going deep enough for them, and that's something that has to be addressed, even if it's not going to be addressed in the most perfect and neat way. I will say though, what Doothi talks about here at the beginning too is something that I have been kind of worried about for like 3-4 years, which is we make videos sometimes about history and about economy and about politics and about social issues. And the videos most commonly seem to be put on as background noise. And that's actually incentivized. YouTube pays us by how long a video is watched in addition to how many views it gets. Nobody has the time to sit down and watch 8 2-hour-long videos every single day and just sit there and stare at the screen and really pay attention. Yeah. Yeah, This is a general problem with media consumption across the board. I mean, we have access to so much stuff. Deep readings of things, close readings of things are much less incentivized, especially in this space, right? And so it's very hard to do the work necessary to really impress on the viewer that like, no, you gotta sit down and watch what I'm saying. You gotta listen closely. Do not put this at 1.5x. Do not listen to this while cooking. Sit down and listen to what I'm saying, because otherwise you're going to get a very small amount of what I'm saying. It's very hard to convince people to do that. And I don't want to convince people to do that. If you're listening to me right now while you're doing something else, which I think probably is most of you, keep doing that thing. But just know that sometimes this lends to us missing what the video is actually saying. Like, I've had people who watch my channel say, oh, I love your channel and I love this other creator. And then I watch the other creator and it's like, we say very different things. And I've heard other creators complain about the same thing. Like, you love me and you love XYZ. I don't want to be throwing names out there, but like, I did a video on my main channel on Elliot Sang about Salem Tovar, who is a commentary channel. Basically, I think this was in 2024, about celebrity stuff and about Palestine. And it was a critique of one particular video of hers and how it really missed the mark in assessing a trend that was going on. And I got a lot of comments from people saying, oh, as a fan of your channel and as a fan of Salem's channel, I'm really glad you made this. Or, I was a little bit disappointed because usually Salem Tovar is so rigorous with her analysis or something like that. And, I don't want to be mean, but I don't know if people were just not paying attention to the other Salem Tovar videos, or if I'm missing the fact that a lot of other videos from this creator are way more in depth and this was just the one where they missed. To me, it just seemed like the type of video that was indicative of what they put out on their channel. And because of that, it's kind of funny because it's like, well, my videos are about socialism. My videos are about colonialism. Obviously, they're about pop culture and cultural stuff, and I try to blend these different worlds, but I have a very, for better or worse, whatever you think of it, I have a very specific ideology I'm trying to push here. I have very specific ideas, and they're kind of radical in my, in a lot of people's estimation. So it's just kind of funny when people are like, wow, like I watched, you and I watched this other channel. Now that's because I think also people put different channels into different boxes. So somebody who earlier on in this chat mentioned that they like me and they like Drew Gooden and Danny Gonzalez, and they think we both do different things and they like how they do those things and how I do my thing. That's very reasonable. At the same time, I do think a lot of people are categorizing certain videos together and are kind of glossing over how certain content creators don't really share their politics, let's say, don't really think that much about some of the things that they're talking about, and don't really have this very progressive view of what they're trying to do with their platform. They're not trying to challenge, they're not trying to deeply critique, a system. They're not necessarily thinking about like, well, I'm making the world a better place. A lot of the time, because of the political economic incentive, because of all these other things, they're really just trying to pump stuff out. And the reactions are a lot of the times just like, whoa, isn't that wild? Or whoa, people are wilding, So yeah, maybe Salem Tovar has put out like other videos that are super deep, but just for me, I was just kind of surprised because I feel like my channel is kind of specific, and the fact that people group my channel in, and YouTube analytics audience numbers will group me in with channels that have pretty different politics and pretty different ways of articulating them, and saying your audience watches both of you a lot. It's just like, I don't know. Also in the chat asks, how much do you think that a creator may not be progressive but thinks they're being progressive? All the time. That's kind of what we try to do as progressives. Like, that's like the central thing is like, if you consider yourself a progressive, or you can be considered a progressive, you're trying to critique systems, you're trying to bring power to the people and all that shit. And you can make a lot of mistakes in that path. So that doesn't surprise me at all that exists. I don't take people as being actually secret reactionaries that are trying to spread, germinate reactionary ideas among left-leaning people. I don't think it's really like that most of the time. I think a lot of people are just trying their best, or not trying their best, but they're just not trying to do the other thing, Yeah, so we should keep going. So Doothi shows a content creator who is basically repeating the same basic point about Kylie Jenner's tank top being a trend, and then talks about how this is an idea of surface skimming.
Grand intellectual piece about the ification of an industrial complex, perhaps, but it ends up just being more reaction meme surface skimming lighthearted commentary instead of actual substance. I want to highlight a video that I think is a good example of this, and it's a classic overconsumption bad video essay.
It's called the viral Kendall Jenner tank top, the Kendall Jenner viral tank top. It's just a white Hanes tank top. This white tank top top. That's the trend of the summer, according to TikTok. And you needed Kylie Jenner to put you onto Hanes tank tops. You needed a celebrity influencer to put you onto the concept of a tank.
So I want to just say here really quickly, like, not trying to be mean to that creator, but like the amount of folks that I've seen on this website that do this specific thing, this is where it gets especially frustrating. You're like, oh, I want to get updated on a specific situation. Oh, what's this Kylie Jenner tank top thing? And then you put on a video, and 80% of the time it'll be somebody, honestly it's usually a white person too, who's like, man, isn't this tank top thing crazy? So this is basically what happened. They summarize it in 10 minutes, not in 10 minutes, in 2 minutes. And then they'll be like, can you believe that people are doing this with the tank top? Overconsumption, right? And they'll just say the same points over and over again. And you're like, wait, get to the meat. I want to know things. I don't want you to just tell me things that I already know. I don't want you to just say things that are like the most basic things to agree with. And then, you know, these channels will have a lot of views, right? And it's like, not to be a big hater, but like, come on. Come on.
Creator wasn't really saying anything of substance, but just playing TikToks and repeating the same 4 talking points over and over again. And the reason I chose this video is not to drag this creator specifically, but it's because he said something really interesting twice throughout the video. Breaking the fourth wall, he says,
And since I still have to burn at least 5 more minutes in this video, let's go deep. Okay, let's trace the origins of this contagion for no other reason than I need to stretch this video out for watch time.
So twice that joke is made in that video. And it's like, if I can find it, I know that creator responded in the comment section. I don't think it's more noble that you say, I'm doing this for watch time while you're doing something for watch time. I think as much as I can relate as a content creator who does, you know, understand the value of watch time, it does feel almost like kind of cheap and kind of insulting to watch a video and have a creator say things like that. But it's also just like, that's the logic, right? They'll rephrase the same sentence 10 times, says ooh, comma. I didn't know the Kylie Jenner tank top thing either, Crunchy Skull. Apparently the Kylie Jenner tank top became like a trend. Spaghetti in their scripting. I don't know what that means, but that's a good term, Diara. Let's keep going.
Now this creator is what I like to call the surface skimmer. Rather than actually going deeper or down a rabbit hole, they skim along the surface of the issue, almost like a glorified TikTok reaction channel with buzzwords and a condenser microphone.
That's not a condenser microphone, to be clear. Unless it's like a condenser microphone that looks like a stage microphone, but this is more like a stage microphone. So you're in the clear, Doothi. Did I just mansplain condenser microphones? I'm sorry, guys.
But I've seen it happen with even deeper, more political content, like people discussing the Sydney Sweeney eugenics genes campaign with that commentary-esque lighthearted Vine boom tone.
And this is something that I'm like, oh, when I talk about the Sydney Sweeney thing, it's like, I really feel like I'm trying to go deep, for better, for like sometimes I'll fail, but like I'm trying to like bring in a little theory and give different examples. And then it's like my video will like be underperforming other videos that are basically like Sydney Sweeney, racist genes, whoa, you know? And it's just like, oh man.
This inability to cover topics, whether it be Kendall Jenner's tank top or political dog whistles, with the depth and nuance they warrant, is not only a hallmark of surface skimming commentary content, but indicative of the lost art of rhetoric.
Yes, a dynamic microphone, yeah. Spaghetti in scripting refers to unnecessary, often repetitive stuff. Think of badly written high school essays that meander while trying to hit the word count. Right, that makes a lot of sense, DRM. That's a good term. So here, what Doothi is about to do is make a point about rhetoric that I want to get you guys' thoughts on, because I have some thoughts on it. But essentially, Doothi makes the point that rhetoric is what's missing in a lot of these cases. It's a lack of like attention to rhetoric.
Rhetoric is a skill taught to us in English classes, defined as the art of effective or persuasive speaking through the use of compositional techniques, figures of speech, and the rules of rhetoric. Not to be confused with the rules of Roderick.
Crunchy Skull. See, Elliot, you just don't use enough Vine booms. That's the special sauce. Danae, put Vine booms in this video. I need more Vine booms, otherwise I'm gonna underperform. Sorry, I'm just gonna tussle my hair a little bit. Don't put this in the edit.
Rhetoric is our ability to take these silly TikToks of Kendall Jenner, our complex thoughts and emotions on the subject, societal trends, and synthesize all of that into a comprehensive, persuasive piece that says something of substance. Like writing a quality essay in school, it's a real writing skill, and a rhetorical piece takes time to write. When Kendall Jenner makes a $2 tank top sell out by simply wearing it, we can feel something weird about that situation. We understand that people are over-consuming. We understand people are being easily influenced. These surface-level observations are obvious to most of us, but beyond that superficial feeling of something being weird, we've lost the ability to go deeper and interrogate why, what something like this entails, what this relates to. Not to be Jaden Smith on Maine, but oh my god, can we like talk about the political economic state of the world right now?
So I don't think this is a rhetoric problem. I think that rhetoric can be part of the problem, though. I do agree with Doothi that it is at least part of the problem. In that, yeah, when you have spaghetti in scripts, like Diara talks about, when you have repetitiveness, when you have people saying the same points over and over, when you have people relying on buzzwords and regurgitating other people's points and throwing in other TikToks to pad out a video's runtime, that can reflect a lack of rhetorical strength, a lack of rhetorical practice. This person's not used to writing out their ideas clearly, concisely, argumentatively, convincingly, interestingly. And so they're kind of stuck in the same, talking patterns that, a lot of us are stuck in when we have to cobble together a presentation for our, 100 class as 19-year-olds. And we're like, American Revolution, kind of good, kind of bad, right? Because like good things happen, but also bad things happen. So like America was born, and in a lot of ways that's a good thing, but it was also bad because America did a lot of bad stuff. But then good things happen and it's just like that problem over and over again. That said, rhetoric is maybe a quarter of the problem. And especially when you talk about being Jaden Smith on Maine and you talk about the political economic state of the world right now, it's like, well, that sounds like what you're saying is people should understand political economy a little bit better. And I think that contributes to a larger point, which is whether or not somebody makes jokes, whether or not their channel is silly, whether or not their channel is, we make serious, deep content, let's get deep. You have to read. You have to study the world around you. You have to challenge yourself. You have to challenge yourself by reading different genres. You have to challenge yourself with literary criticism. You have to read and consume other forms of criticism, including something like Doothi's. You have to read books about political economy, read the news. What is the supply chain? I don't know what that is. You gotta get a little bit more educated, because it's a mistake to think that great comedians even are simply great comedians because they're just funny. Great comedians work on their craft relentlessly. Richard Pryor, George Carlin worked on their craft all the time. They had years and years and years of practice, of bombing, of trying stuff. More than that, they also read. You can't tell me George Carlin didn't read. They read books. They read the news. They study. They listen to other people in conversation, right? Having a conversation with somebody from a different background than you. A taxi driver, a person serving you food from a cart. And like sometimes the problem, as Tegan Young points out in the chat too, is that like a lot of commentators are talking about political things like AI or like overconsumption. These are theoretical constructs to talk about political economy. You can't just say them because you heard them on TikTok. You gotta like understand a little bit, like what is consumption? What is a commodity? What is, commodity fetishism? What is, even if you're not gonna be a Marxist, like try to like take some time to understand these things and then challenge yourself. Like, okay, well, so now that I have this new information, how does that give me more insight into what I'm talking about? Aiden Copycat. I don't want to beat the dead horse of media literacy, but I think it's showing here. I think it's somewhat media literacy, which is a buzzword in and of itself, but I think it's also just a lack of time. And we'll talk about this in a little bit because I have some notes on this. I think first though, fundamentally, the big problem is there's a lack of self-critique, right? It's like what I said in the intro. People are very used to criticizing other things because that's safe, because that's fun, and because social media incentivizes that. So when I think about the bad thing, I'm thinking about somebody else doing it. But when you really care about solving the problem, when you really care about ending the bad thing, that's when you're in a process of thinking about yourself doing it. Does that make sense? I have talked about this before. I think it's a fundamental problem that we're all having right now, where we don't want to criticize ourselves. We're always the person that needs to get less attention on them. We don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be criticized too much. We say we're open to criticism, but then we don't follow through on that. We lack the gumption to sit through a criticism that makes us feel uncomfortable. We lack the ability to sit with discomfort. And if you can't sit with discomfort, you cannot create. You cannot create, because creation is dialectics, it's conflict, it's contradiction. You have to put yourself in difficult situations sometimes. You have to sit with difficult feelings so that you can write about them, so that you can talk about them, so that you can reflect and learn things from them. Somebody who has just not felt any discomfort, they're not going to have anything to say. And a lot of you are feeling that discomfort, but you're trying to avoid it. And so you have the lived experience of somebody who goes through a lot of discomfort, but you don't have any of the reflections of somebody who's been through it because you're avoiding even talking about it. Kavisha, I agree with the lack of self-critique. When I talk to people, I notice a lot of people understand how they are being wronged, but very few of us understand how we might be wronging someone. And without this good self-critique, not only do we act like this in society, but then our creations tend to suck. You have to deconstruct your own socialization, and you have to build out your philosophy. Simone Weil talks about philosophy as a thing that you live. Your lived experience is your philosophy. You can't just have ideas because you're sitting in a room having ideas and you never experience discomfort in that process. You go to the factory and you work among other factory workers, and then you have better thoughts about how factory life is and about the working condition of the average person. Yeah, you got to work on your arrogance presentation and not hurting others like Diara is working on. Danae O says, I think it's also a result of the self-care movement, i.e. I don't owe anyone anything. Yeah, that's connected. I think that's related and connected, and I think in some places it's a result of that. We are all doing this Western thing of trying to figure out how to avoid as much discomfort as possible. We think that good living and better world is something that comes about from eliminating as much discomfort as possible. You know, how do I get everything that I want without suffering, you know? And it's like, this is not to sound like some sort of arch conservative who's like, people just don't work hard enough. But when it comes to your intellect, your ability to produce things of worth, your ability to do things that matter to you, that's going to mean sitting with some uncomfortable feelings. And especially when you don't do that, right? Like if you don't have the ability to sit there and say, man, I'm repeating myself a lot in this fucking video, then you're just going to end up pumping out 10, 20, 50 videos where you're repeating Kylie Jenner's tank top over and over again. Okay, so let's get to the next section that I want to talk about before I get too bogged down.
When a commentary YouTuber says, let's go deeper, he plays another surface level TikTok about tank tops. That isn't going deeper, it's going wider, skimming along the surface and bringing in something less related to the video's main topic. And there's no...
That's a pretty good point. Now I want to talk about Doothi's concept of the low-hanging fruit. There's a lot to say here too.
Commentary's low-hanging fruit problem. I actually wrote this chapter before the Love Island fruit AI thing, and I think it's perfect because it's literally about fruit. If you don't know, there's an AI version of Love Island with fruits, I guess. And a lot of commentary channels have just made videos reacting to the AI slop. And I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, no, Doothi, they're not reacting to it. They're critiquing the AI.
I'm Draco, dragon fruit.
I love this diva right here.
Oh my god, she punched her.
I want to pause right here and just say I love Anna Marie Fortino. I've collaborated with Anna Marie Fortino before. Great person, very kind, very cool person. Haven't spoken with them in a while, but shout out to Anna Marie. I refuse to say anything critical about Anna Marie Fortino, but this is part of the video and I do want to show this.
Now, I know that AI fruit is bad in slop, and you know that AI fruit is bad in slop, and Jarvis Johnson knows that AI fruit is bad in slop, and I think the creator of Love Island Fruit AI knows that AI fruit is bad in slop. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Did we need a 20-minute video of a grown man reacting to this obviously terrible content, normalizing it, and offering it free promotion? But something that really stood out to me about this video was his word choice, and something recurring I see in the comments a lot, and it was, if you unironically enjoy this, I'm concerned for you. Did you notice the word choice there? Unironically, implying that if you ironically consume fruit AI content, it's okay and funny. Another creator says, oh, I don't support this, I'm just watching it so you don't have to.
Basically, I'm watching it so you don't have to. You're welcome.
If you catch me enjoying this unironically, fruit.
But none of us have to watch it. It's gonna be okay. A common theme on my channel is when is it no longer satire, but reacting to fruit AI for 20 minutes, explaining to the audience who Grapehead and Cherryana are, laughing at a banana with two heads, that is slop content. We're all still watching the content. Just because we're watching and laughing at the AI in a snarky hipster way, and pepper in 3 jokes about how it's 500 degrees outside, it doesn't make us any better than the people laughing at the content on TikTok. It's kind of like if a store's being boycotted, so then you go to the store and buy a bunch of items to review them, and then say you hate them, but you still supported the store, and you ate the entire sandwich.
I'm not gonna say that Anna Marie did anything wrong here. If it were to be possible that Anna Marie were to have done this in the video, you know what, like, perhaps there are critiques to be made there. I will say generally about the general points, right? This, first of all, when we talk about like, okay, we're just doing the same thing as other people are doing it, but we're putting a coat of irony and critique on top of it. Oh, it's 500 degrees outside, but now I'm still making fun of AI, meaning I'm consuming AI content. That gets into some other problems about pretension, about pretentiousness. It gets into some other problems about the left, so to speak. And it gets into some problems about, again, like unwillingness to sit with discomfort, to identify yourself as potentially somebody who could be in the wrong, because you could literally be doing what the wrong people do in this case, for instance. But because it's you and because you express some self-awareness about it, now it's like all good. I'm not going to say that those videos are bad per se. I didn't watch them. I've enjoyed a lot of Jarvis Johnson's content, but there is a certain point where we have a very big problem with subject matter. We have a very big problem with putting out a lot of videos and figuring out what are those videos going to be about. April Sour. Not gonna lie, stuff like this is why I have stopped watching commentary and video essays. I watch mostly travel vlogs now. This is what I'm saying, right? This is not uncommon sentiment. There's also this like particular comment to get at, again, the subject matter problem and the low effort problem and the lack of discomfort problem. Doothi says something at 10:15 that I liked.
This phenomena happens a lot in commentary, criticizing something that is obviously bad and silly. Of course, a TikTok vertical drama is cringe and bad. Of course, AI slop videos are bad. You don't need to react to them. Of course, a book talk book named Daddy's Toy is bad. So many of these videos create commentary on something so obvious that it ends up being a long video saying, isn't this obviously terrible thing terrible?
This is one of the biggest problems, video essay space, commentary space writ large, right? We are challenged sometimes to, as people who make videos about stuff, talk about these things in a way that people are not going to be immediately hostile towards, try to expand people's minds, but also talk about things that, you know, express things that they agree with so that they can, by catharsis, jump into the conversation, watch the video, comment on the video. This kind of problem, it goes back to this inability to settle ourselves in the work of this work. Does that make sense? I get that we're all being very exploited under capitalism. I get that we're all exhausted. And I think that when we talk about these issues on a structural level, this is where we should start to talk about the political economy part a little bit. It's really important to center it on the fact that people are tired. The fact that a lot of people wants to be doing better, wants to do better work, more meaningful work, but they don't feel like they have the freedom to do so because they have to pay the bills. And the bills are getting bigger and the pay is getting smaller and the cost of living in general, it's out of control, you know? This is the reality that makes people have second channels. And a lot of this, you know, there's a part in this video, I don't know if I'm going to show it, where she mentions another content creator, somebody I've been cool with, who has made a second channel and essentially has been posting frequently on the second channel, monetizing it well. But they started the second channel out of irony. Just, see how a lot of people make low effort commentary videos, and then they just kept posting low effort commentary videos because they were doing well, even better than the videos that they do on their main channel, which are really considered and thoughtful and take time and require effort and engagement. This is a big problem that has occurred with the YouTube algorithm. It's one that we're all learning to adjust to, but any YouTuber that you see that does this for a career, they do not have one channel unless they are doing some big numbers on that one channel, or unless they have other jobs. They have multiple channels because they need at least one channel which brings in consistent revenue through consistent posting. And so the model is, okay, you're a video essayist, your second channel is a commentary channel, you post on it once, twice, 3 times a week. There are videos that are from between 15 minutes to an hour long, and they're not that well researched. They're more so just you thinking through ideas, talking through them. And those videos will be oriented towards what's popping off on the algorithm. So this discourse is happening, it's getting some views on YouTube. On my second channel, I will do a 30-minute video talking about it. That's the pattern, right? And then on your main channel, you put out a video per quarter or twice a year, once a year, whatever. The whole Illuminati verse. Yeah, some content creators have like 3, 4, 5, 6 channels. Commentary, video essay, commentary on a different subject. You know, Foreign, my good friend, has a video essay channel, a commentary channel, which is clips from live streams like my Elliot Sang Again channel, and then the Big Body Foreign channel, which is like commentary interspersed with fitness content. There is a degree to which, yeah, creative people will get creative and they'll find ways to make good stuff that you'll enjoy and you'll get stuff out of, however it has to be. But this is also still indicative of how difficult this situation is when it comes to making a full-time career off of content creation. And so it's no surprise then that you make a lot of videos that are based on low-hanging fruit, dunking on things that should obviously get dunked on, that you're repeating a lot of points that other people are saying, that you're saying a lot of simple stuff, that you're not doing a lot of research. And this was a big, and still is a big thing in my head. Don't forget Foreign's music channel. Foreign has great music. Oh yeah, and the podcast. Like, I can't forget the podcast. I have a podcast with Nelly, with Earth to Nelly. That's coming back soon. What was I gonna say? This was a big problem when it came to me starting the second channel and like working out my ideas of how to do the second channel. It figures big in my mind all the time because I don't want to just put out slop. I don't want to just put out, okay, this is my second channel, here's a low effort commentary video, it gets 200,000 views. And there's certain elements of this channel that are inevitably going to feel that way, including the thumbnails that are often just me between 2 pictures. At the same time, I try to like have these be well researched to some degree. I try to have notes, I try to have tabs, I try to cite stuff, I try to have chapters, I try to engage with the chat because it's a live stream setting. And so if the chat chimes in with good commentary or things that I want to touch on, that helps a lot for me. It helps a lot for the quality of the videos. It also makes the audience feel more engaged with. But it's been a process, man. I remember early on when I would start doing this or thought about doing this, I had one commenter who had been following my channel for a while say, particularly like, I don't want you to do the Little Joel thing. You know, they had some negative feelings about Little Joel, Big Joel's second channel, because I think there was a discourse going on that apparently Little Joel had missed on through a video on the second channel. They were like, I am not interested in, nor do I want to support content creators making more and more content with less and less effort for the algorithm. I'm not interested in that. I don't want to encourage that. I think it's a problem. You see content creators that come onto the scene that have great videos, and then as they're trying to do this more, they end up posting a bunch of stuff on a second channel. Can it also be attributed, Danae asks, to how fast everything is moving, creators feeling the need to provide analysis on everything popular happening? Yeah, that definitely plays a role. But I also get feelings sometimes of like, man, I don't know if there's anything I really want to talk about that much, but I got to get myself to talk about something. And there can be periods of time where it's like, I don't know if I've got anything. Because even though there are these topics that are worth talking about, it's somebody else that should probably talk about them. It's probably not me. I also noticed that a lot of the time, because of how YouTube's payout incentive works, right? Not only do you get this issue with like certain sponsorships, which I'm seeing start to decline, and I'm thankfully in a position now where I don't have to take sponsorships, unless I really think it's a good idea. I see some people post a lot. Okay, a lot. I see some people in the past who have posted like once a day, once every 2 days, twice a day sometimes on this second channel vehicle. And then, not coincidentally, there will inevitably be a video where people are like, yo, you missed with this one. You were not on this one. You missed. You didn't get this right. Why did you have such a bad take? Normally I like your videos, but. And what I think about it as is, it's been happening. It's been happening the whole time. The quality of the content has decreased. That's been happening. Now you've just noticed it because something was jarring enough to wake you up to that. But this person has been posting too much for a long time. And I'm sorry, like even if you are a PhD, 55-year-old with a wealth of knowledge in several subjects, you are simply not going to make every single day a 40-minute video or a 20-minute video about a popular culture subject that is worth people's time and that is going to get everything right and that is not going to make, factual errors. Also, it's like that old quantity versus quality discussions. Quantity versus quality, yeah. Nijam Blossom. Literally the same thing that happens to lots of artists as well when their art quality low-key gets worse when they're working under so much stress for a weird company. Cough, webtoon, cough, Keep it in the drafts. Yeah, Doothi does make this point. She sees people equipped to talk about TikTok drama now talking about Sydney Sweeney and Sabrina Carpenter. They aren't equipped to talk about a mature topic. Yeah, I saw she posted that. Yeah, Kavisha, people need time to think and form their opinions. I just took a week off. I'll come back. Delete it, bald. That's funny. I take a week off. I take 2 weeks off maybe if I can. But I feel it, guys. I feel it in my pocketbook. I feel it in my income if I take a week off. I really do. That's why I incentivize you to go to the Patreon where I post bonus content, updates, previews, extra interviews, all that stuff. I'll post some previews of an upcoming video essay soon. Please join my Patreon because I don't want to keep relying on having to post a lot. And I don't want to be in a position sometimes, which I inevitably am in, and I try to make the best of it, where I'm like, I really don't have that much to say. I got to figure something out. And it takes a lot of space away from the video essays I want to write, the book that I want to write, the research projects I want to do, the creative projects that I want to do. Anyway, I want to talk about next a part of the video where she talks about the silly goofy guy. And this is another place where I can maybe have some qualms with Doothi's video.
My next problem with commentary content, irony poisoning. But this is the problem I notice in commentary where creators will just embrace this unserious, ironic persona where they're just a silly, goofy guy. I think a notable example of this irony epidemic is one of my favorite YouTubers starting a slop channel on the side as a joke.
This is what I was talking about.
Now he just uploads TikTok drama react slop on there. Just look at the difference in thumbnail effort and subject matter between these two channels. As a creative, I'm sure he would prefer people to watch the main channel instead. It's super high effort. One of my problems with irony slop is to absolve themselves of criticism or being placed under scrutiny. Some creators claim to be self-aware that they're producing slop content. The Kendall Jenner tank top guy, for example, has an outro that says, "Lower your standards and subscribe." The self-aware slop creator brags about spending such little time researching topics. They're just a silly, goofy guy. But because they produce slop with a wink and some self-aware irony, they're somehow above the slop they're criticizing. And of course, I'm also guilty of this. I belittle myself all the time on this channel. Much like Stuart, I belittle. But I belittle myself all the time as a commentary creator so as to not be held to too high or unachievable of a standard. Don't look too closely, I'm just a goofy little gesture online, because the moment people start inspecting your content critically is the moment your presentation, research, and rhetorical skills are on display.
This is something that not to do the same thing Doothi's doing, but when I would take creative writing classes, the teacher would always be like, do not self-deprecate. When you're going to present your work, do not say, this isn't very good, or, oh, I didn't try my best with this one, or I just didn't have a lot of time and I didn't know what to do, so I just had this here. Because it's like the equivalent of posting a selfie and just being like, ugh, I'm just not feeling great today. You know, posting a bathroom mirror selfie like this. Oh, I'm a little bit ugly, aren't I? Like, you're baiting a reaction and you're taking away people's ability to actually thoughtfully evaluate the content because you're couching it in, oh, it's just not really that good, is it? But we're being ironic, but I'm just quirky, you know, I'm just having fun. That's a cover, you know, and it's clever and everybody does it to a degree, like Doothi said, but there are ways that you can really lay it on thick. I do think, though, that this raises an important question, which is how much are these comedy commentary channels, including somebody like Jarvis Johnson, how much are they really the ones to be picking on for this? I would say that I'm all for it. I would say that I think everybody, like what I mentioned before, you know, comedians and all types of comedic channels should be working on their craft. They should be, you know, thinking a bit more critically. But I don't think these are the main perpetrators of the problem. Even somebody like Curtis Connor, who gets brought up. Do I always enjoy a Curtis Connor joke? No, I do not. Is Curtis Connor my favorite creator in the world? Not necessarily. Although I've enjoyed some Curtis stuff before, I've laughed at Curtis jokes before, all that. But at the same time, I know that what he's doing when he posts a video, even if it's a pretty low effort or not that interesting video in my view, is kind of connecting with an audience. He's a person that they're interested in, that they have a parasocial connection with, and they like his jokes, and they like the way he talks, and they like his general vibe, the cut of his jib. At the very least, I can understand the philosophy of the content. It's not every single video has to be an amazing banger. It's not, I'm gonna get real deep with this one. It's, here's just some stuff that I wanted to talk about. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, but the people that watch me, they like it. They always like it, and I make a lot of money doing that, and I like my audience and whatever. This is the thing, though. There are commentary channels that want you to believe they're doing a real deep dive. They're getting real critical with it. They're a real sicko getting real critical with it. And then you watch the videos and it's like lowest common denominator. And those are really more of the problem. It's more the people, I mean, maybe because of the space that I'm in and the way that it affects my space. I personally take much more issue with people who are supposed to be doing political commentary, and the political commentary is kind of sloppy, who are supposed to be doing social commentary. The social commentary is not based in theory. And again, it's like when we were talking about more serious issues like Doothi's talking about, like the Sydney Sweeney and eugenics stuff, like, can we read an article? Like, can we challenge ourselves a little bit more? And yeah, also, like I mentioned earlier, you know, even with that said about Curtis, it's like a lot of you maybe need to evaluate what Hermie Torres just said. You know, how much are you gravitating towards the quirked up white boy? Like, there are white boys that get online and immediately they have a huge audience. Based off of what? Based off of they're kind of funny and they're not the dumbest person on the planet. I mean, the Cody Co example is kind of important here. You had somebody who got platformed huge and heavy because he presented himself as relatable, because a lot of the videos were funny. You know, there are a lot of like big funny videos, in part because of the co-star, really. And because of that, he basically just created a gold-plated bed for himself to lay in forever. You know, he has a huge amount of support still, even having like taken a huge public image L and lost a lot of fans. Because so many people take that time to just elevate somebody who just seems like they don't hate women, and they're kind of funny, and they're not averse to having more than one thought in their head at a time. Crimes New Roman gets at the point in a really important way too. A lot of people are looking for their own opinions regurgitated back at them. Wow, this AI thing is so bad. Hassan is the worst thing ever, etc., etc. And that's a very lucrative thing to do. And this is where I've had moments, you know, as much as I've been somebody who's like, I don't want to just do the sloppy second channel. I've had moments where I'm like, man, maybe I'm trying too hard. And sometimes I am. Maybe I'm trying too hard to just like have a smarter take, quote unquote, have a more intellectual take, quote unquote, be more knowledgeable, to read something and to really speak about it, you know? Maybe I should just spend more time saying things that y'all agree with, because I think it would make my job easier and would make my revenue go up a little bit more. That urge doesn't quite go away, and I'm always thinking about how I can kind of alchemize that into making actually better content without just like being cynical about it. But it's just true. Like at the end of the day, people want a content creator that they feel kind of comfortable with, and they want a content creator that they feel like they can relate to and that makes them laugh. And like, to be honest, that's never really been the biggest bag for me. People like my videos because they think that I'm presumably very smart or whatever, and I sound like I know what I'm talking about. And I've noticed that that also affects the amount of patrons that I get. It affects the size of my audience as like a consistent thing, because I don't do as much of the parasocial work. Because I'm like very subject focused, sometimes I try to be quirky, you know, I try to give you guys my sense of humor because that's how I talk, that's how I do things. But I think for some reasons that are out of my control, like the fact that I'm not white and the fact that I'm not, like, my brain work a little different, and also because I am trying to make this effort to make the content itself stand out for its own merit, I actually take some L's on the financial side because I'm not being perceived as the best friend. And people will pay money for their parasocial best friend. They don't really pay as much money for the guy who made a good video about that one thing. That's how it goes though. Okay, this is more about the unseriousness problem here.
Of course, this ironic, unserious persona around commentary kind of makes sense because commentary as a genre is inherently unserious. It was created by Vine comedians. Obviously, not everything needs to be a think piece. Here are some pretty unserious commentary videos I enjoyed, but I think a disconnect happens when the lines start to blur from comedic reaction video to a social commentary video essay. Commentary naturally forces you to talk about serious things with this superficial, lighthearted tone. I think the genre also suffers from the opposite problem, where people talk about something completely inconsequential like it's the most important thing in the world.
I just wanted to show this because I'm also like a little bit annoyed that certain people are reacting to this as if Doothi's saying every commentary channel should be completely serious. Commentary channels aren't a thing. Everybody should do extensive research before talking about things. It's clear that what Doothi is saying is, yeah, there is a lot of value to the comedic video. Here are videos that are comedic commentary videos that I like, you know? That's all like I want to say there. And I just feel like it's true that there is a gray area between this content's low effort and it's poor rhetoric, and this content is silly and chill, and that there's some degree to which Doothi could probably emphasize more so the more serious targets. But honestly, I don't have a big problem with that. And especially, as Shinivani says in the chat, the unserious on topics where it's not appropriate is a problem. We can inject humor into conversations in a natural way. We don't have to try to like put a joke in every 5 seconds. To be honest, even some of the jokes in this Doothi video, I'm like, I didn't need that. But I get why they're in there to like retain some type of lighthearted tone. But I think that they kind of weaken, ironically, the rhetoric. So this section then becomes about TikTok dramatary channels. So basically just the problem with basically TikTok drama happening and then YouTube channels mining it for views and for long videos. Then I want to just start from this part where they talk about commodification and then go to the end because I'm not positive how to talk about the conclusion. I didn't get any notes on the conclusion. So we'll just finish the video from 19 minutes in and then we will move on.
Doothi explains a business concept because she's a business major. Because unlike the memes on Twitter, business majors do learn real things in school. A commodity is not just a good that you purchase, but it's defined as an item easily interchanged with a similar product for an identical consumer experience. By me, I wrote that definition. So
this is an interesting part where Doothi basically says that commentary channels are very commoditized. And Doothi's definition of a commodity is an item easily interchanged with a similar product for an identical consumer experience. I don't think this really works as a definition of commodity. I understand that Doothi's a business major, but I feel like this is a very depoliticized understanding of what a commodity is, and for that reason, it falls into certain traps of political economy, certain capitalist traps. It is just a definition, and we all kind of know what a commodity is. But a commodity is not getting an identical consumer experience as another commodity. I don't think that really makes sense, that a commodity can be easily interchanged with a similar product for an identical consumer experience. There are a lot of commodities that you cannot switch out for another commodity. A lot of things can be considered commodities, like specific books. You can buy a horror book, and you can even in very direct ways interchange in the marketplace that horror book for a romance book. The consumer experience is not identical. So I don't really understand this definition, and I feel like commodity is a complicated thing, right? Marx talks about the commodity in complicated ways, but ultimately the key of a commodity is that it has a use value and an exchange value. That use value is based off of the concrete labor put into it. It's an umbrella, has handle, has parasol. I use it to cover from rain. That's use value. And then exchange value, which is based on abstract labor. Well, it's a very cheaply made umbrella sold on Temu for $5. It's poorly constructed in people's eyes. It's an equally poorly constructed umbrella, but it's being made by Gucci, and it's for $100. It's a well-constructed umbrella, but it's not that fancy in society. It's going for about 30 or 40. It's got a vegan, like there's all types of social things that then determine our exchange value. How much are we willing to pay for something? Well, it depends on the social value of it. It depends on what socially we assign value to, and that's the abstract labor. So for me, a commodity is just something that has a use value and an exchange value and is in the consumer marketplace. Even that definition you can get at. But I guess that's part of where I have issues with this concept of, it's commoditized, right? Because I think what Doothi's point is about to be is that these YouTube videos, these commentary videos, they're like commodities. They're commoditized, meaning they're just all basically products that you could just buy. They're cheap. They're made specifically to make money. They're interchangeable. And yeah, I think Doothi probably could do more work here with this idea, because that's not what commoditizing could really mean. It's a sort of more pejorative way that we talk about commoditizing, but Doothi's defining it as like, that's what commodity is. And that doesn't really make much sense to me.
So table salt is an example of a commodity. You can't charge someone $20 for table salt because Costco salt and fancy French salt are pretty much the same thing. Gas is also a commodity. Gas stations have pretty much the same gas.
I mean, I think that this working example, if I'm misunderstanding, let me know, but already kind of falls apart, because it's like, people charge pretty different things for Himalayan pink salt sold at, a farmer's market versus basic table salt that you get at any like supermarket chain versus like kosher salt with large crystals, seasoned salt, right? So even within the category of salt, there are different prices that vary significantly for different definitions, for different abstract labor and different concrete labor too.
Petroleum jelly, these things are all commodities because people are more concerned with buying the cheapest version possible than the item's quality. So because you can't charge someone a super high price for an easily substitutable...
Yeah, YMX I think makes the point that I wasn't gonna say as directly, but this explanation of commodity is the same thing as saying over-consuming is bad. Yeah, it's like what you're trying to ultimately say feels like, okay, well, these things are being consumed because they're commodities, and that's bad because it's not about the soul of the thing. It's not about like whether or not the content is really meaningful. It's just a easy thing to consume that's sold on the marketplace.
It's content commodified. They're goods that we as customers are consuming that feel identical to one another. In points, style, packaging, arguments, the viewer gets the same value from each of these uploads. They're easily interchanged. So what is the cheapest option when it comes to commentary content? And I think the answer to that is the most distracting option. Consumers are trying to get the best value for their invested time, and so of all these identical videos, they choose the one that distracts them the most. Through more aggravating snarky false rage, through more overstimulating editing, and on the side of creators, if something becomes commodified, sellers try figuring out how to manufacture it as cheaply and seamlessly as possible.
I don't really understand what the point was there, because it's like, I don't think a lot of people are actually consuming content for an idea of cheapness, especially on this side of YouTube. First of all, cheapness is not really a metric I would use because they're not spending any money. But I also don't think that they're consuming content based off of how distracting it is. How many sound effects does it use, They like the parasociality of it. That would be what I think the value is. The value is the part of the abstract labor. It's the fact that Curtis Connor made it. It's the fact that Film Cooper made it. And I like him. Chad, I like her. That is a huge role in it because it is ultimately about a kind of form of substituting socializing. I would say that has a lot more to do with it. Now, it is true that we are going to be thinking about profit maximization as content creators, a lot of the time, especially if we're not like thinking about ulterior motives beyond just like doing this for money. So I would say that That part and maybe this part is going to make more sense for me.
The time and resources put into each video sinks lower and lower until each creator perfectly follows a template that is simple, unnecessarily long, and shallow. Am I sounding too harsh? It's the Timuification of content. Dare I say, being a commentary YouTuber nowadays sometimes feels like pollution.
I feel like there was a good attempt made by Doothi to like try to extrapolate a deeper analysis based off of like market logic. But I think Doothi's definition of market logic is like quite limited. I mean, ironically, it's very business major because it's very much like not thinking about all the different capitalistic needs that go into why certain products are consumed. It doesn't really understand the consumer well, and it doesn't really have that much in terms of accurate base level analysis beyond, yeah, content creators are going to try to maximize as much profit as they can get, and so that will make it so that they make a video that's too long and longer than it needs to be because that stretches the watch time, or they'll talk about specific topics that they know will get a good return. But there's a lot of different formats that Doothi could have talked about this in that could have made a lot more sense. So I think that there's some stuff missing there, and I think it ultimately, like I said, like went towards just trying to make a point of like, it's like pollution, it's like Timu. It's like, okay, yeah, you know, like I feel that, but in a lot of ways it isn't like that. It's quite unique from that. It is also a symptom of late stage capitalism in many ways, but by foregoing having like a structural systemic critique or a political economic critique, you end up kind of being like, well, what are some things I could take from my business class that could apply here? She's not talking that quickly. I'm putting it on 125 to be fair.
I also noticed TikTok commentary creators always act super mad and morally outraged at random people in their videos.
To just act like a total f***ing brat, reign to terrorize people and try to ruin people's careers, like a coward, a little crony, okay? Oh my god, these people, they disgust me, like they really disgust me.
Now, what do you think she's talking about here? Leave your guesses in the comments below. I'll give you 10 seconds. I'm kidding. That would kill my retention. She's talking about a bride who removed her makeup on her wedding day because she didn't like it. See how I explained that to you in 10 seconds?
Yeah, and you made the joke too here about like, that would kill my retention. I think you did it a lot smarter of a way than the creator that you showed did, Doothi, but I don't think that's that different in spirit. That being said, like, yeah, this whole thing of like these content creators exaggerating their moral disgust, you know, it's actually something I find that people do when they're filling space. When they're filling space in the conversation, it's just awful. It's just awful. It's like when you tell white people about something white people. It's like when you tell a white person about something racist that happened to you and they're just like, God, it's just terrible. Oh, I hate that. I hate that so much. It's like, I can tell you don't know what to say. I can tell you don't know what to say. So yeah, I see what Doothi's saying here for sure. Oh, white people, the French, that's funny. When you tell a French person about racism, they don't kill time. They just start arguing with you that you're too sensitive.
That I support.
Laura asks a really important question. Consider that the consumer doesn't have the parasocial relationship with the creator. What video will they watch that will explain the AI fruit thing? What differentiates these videos? I think it's a few things. I think it's the amount of views that a video has. I think it's the way that the thumbnail looks and the title looks. And if it scratches the itch of like, does it look like the kind of content that I would normally watch if I watch a lot of YouTube content? If I don't watch a lot of YouTube content, does it look like something that I would watch in theaters or in TV? Does it have imagery that I kind of think is interesting? The title, is the title saying something that I agree with? Is the title making me think something? Is it making me jump out of my seat? They will also tend to click based off of racial bias, gender bias, pretty privilege bias, or whatever, lookism, so to speak, all types of different biases on that front. They'll also, you know, make evaluations based off of a lot of other things. Cheapness, I just don't think is a good place to look at that. Also, yeah, it is ironic that people are very distracted by the rug tufting. I'm also getting distracted by the rug tufting, ironically. And yeah, it's how the algorithm structures and curates what people will engage with, as Ifemi says. The algorithm has certain limits and it has certain dispositions, let's say. It's marketing. It's marketing, and marketing is based off of a lot of psychological and sociological things. Yeah, I also agree that parasocial relationships are not entirely bad. But when people don't act critically based off of their parasocial relationships, that's kind of bad.
And I do watch these influencer takedown videos. I can't help but have this weird feeling after leaving a video like this. Like, I just spent an hour listening to a deep dive of this influencer that I've never met and why she sucks, why rage bait is rage bait, and why rage bait is bad. And it's like, I could have maybe not listened to this, but in the moment, a good takedown video like this almost puts you in a trance. Something about it is so satisfying.
Yeah, that's, I think, because it can get at certain feelings we have about society and feelings we have about people that we know. I think that's part of why it gets us in such a trance. Also, it's enjoyable to dunk on somebody that feels like they're worthy of dunking on. You know, that's that schadenfreude, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, that schadenfreude can give you a nasty feeling afterwards, a bad aftertaste. The rugs are gorgeous. The rugs are gorgeous.
And something else I notice about this peanut gallery problem is it results in snark from creators who don't really have a reason to be commenting on something, because the creators are more equipped to talk about TikTok cringe or internet gossip than racially charged political conversations. Another huge example and a big reason I'm making this video is book talk commentary. A lot of book talk bad videos are coming from people who don't even read. Yes, book talk has an anti-intellectual problem. Yes, people are reading a lot of slop on there, but there are commentary creators who haven't read a book in years, only to make videos clowning book talk girlies, and it will oftentimes bleed into misogynistic territory.
So I like what Doothi's saying here. I also think it is, they've never read a book in years. And it's like, how would you know that? Like, how are you? It's hard to do this in a way that's like intellectually stimulating if you're not looking at a specific person, if you're not going to call out specific names. It feels as though this part of the critique is very much the part of like any another thing. There's certain things that are really frustrating me. I just want to touch on them really quickly. And there's some degree to which that hovers over the video. And I think that's part of why some people react to it like, oh, she's just hating. Even though I do think that this is actually not a bad video at all. So this is the conclusion.
So that was the unabridged video that had upset the commentary creators so much. I think the criticism was pretty fair, but again, this whole video was supposed to be a message to the viewers. Transparently, these creators can make a lot of money setting a camera down, reacting to bad movies, dating shows, TLC, and TikTok drama. You are the consumer. You have every right to question and criticize the quality of their content. At the end of the day, they may not act like it, but they are rich influencers profiting from your attention, and influencer fatigue can apply to these people as well.
I think this is on point. The only problem I have is that, again, when you're doing such a generalized scope with some of your arguments, you're looping in a lot of people who probably are not anywhere close to that amount of money, including the person at the start of the video. Like, I don't think he's that big. It's hard to use a specific view quantity, but if you're not getting 1.5 million views a month, you're probably not living large off of this stuff at all. For reference, I think I get about 400K a month, on a decent month. That being said, yes, you have a right to critique these people, and we should think critically about these things. It doesn't necessarily mean your video was the best at doing it, but I think you got at some things that are really important here. I would just caution that the next time we do this, maybe we do it with some more political economy understanding, that we incorporate into it. Maybe we do so with some more specificity, and maybe the commentary format where we're showing a rug being made and where we're kind of making reference to this and that, and we're saying some jokes and we're saying some things that everybody's going to agree with in a generalized way. Maybe that doesn't lend to this very well. Maybe the next one has to be a video essay where we get clips and we respond to the specific clips, and then we respond to specific creators, and we deep dive with certain creators, or something more essay-like. Because this is kind of an essay, but it's also in some places a rant, and it's in some places a bit of a comedy set, right? It's a bit of a commentary. So
take a break from their content, and even take a break from my content if you feel it doesn't serve you. But a big theme on my channel is thinking and using your brain. If you like them as people, if it's what you listen to as you brush your teeth, and if you're burnt out from the news cycle and need some levity, commentary's fine. I made that point in my original upload.
I agree with that, and I think it's important that people note that Doothi is saying that. I will also say, to keep it gnarly, the overly generalized brush will always keep us back. Nuance and context is very important. Yes, but I do think sometimes you need somebody to just generalize. There is a value to being a person that's just going to say the thing, even if it's a little bit messy and even if it's a little bit big picture and a little bit generalized, just so you can wake people up. Because if I have to make and I made a video called sometimes nuance is bad. If you're painstaking to make every single point to be this specific thing is in a specific context when done on the 4th of July, a bad thing to do. And let's define what bad means. Bad, it comes from the Latin word, you know what I mean? That kind of thing is not what I'm advocating for. What I will say is, though, there are certain critics who do a magnificent job of making these generalized points about specific types of writers. I'm thinking of Andrea Long Chu writing about Ocean Vuong and the general complex of Asian diaspora writers or immigrant diaspora writers and certain aphorisms they use and the way that they kind of manipulate or milk audiences in ways that appear like they're subverting the Western gaze and the Western thought, but they're actually appealing to it with a very friendly nod critique, right? And Andrea Long Chu, I think, did a great job of that. I will say, though, that that's a hard thing to do that takes a lot of work. And I think what Doothi has done is a step in that direction. But I think that it takes more than just well-written sentences, sharp rhetorical patterns, a good joke here and there, a good format to make these points. It takes really thinking about society. It takes really thinking about political economy. It takes really thinking about history and a larger perspective on those things. And Doothi seems like they might be a few years younger than me, so it's Not even something that I would try to be mean about, you know?
But you do have the right to think and the right to ask, do I have any problems with this? That's a right I'll continue to exercise, even if it ruffles the feathers of some commentary big shots. Because the reality is, their ad revenue, HelloFresh checks, and reaction income is at stake the more thoughtful you are with your content consumption.
I think most of the commentary channels that people would be concerned about here don't take HelloFresh money. Like, I don't think Jarvis Johnson takes HelloFresh money. I think Drew Gooden even stopped. So that's another thing, right? This is the point. You're not exactly hitting exactly who you want to hit. That's what I'm trying to say. It's good to sometimes make generalized points. It's good to be acerbic. But when you're acerbic, that's fire bending, man. Like, that's a heavy thing to do. You got to be sharp about it, or else, especially when you're putting yourself in the line of fire, it's very easy to be like, well, you're just like saying shit. You're just like ranting. You're just like being mean. You're just making shit up. And that will undermine the weight of what you're saying.
And to any commentary creators watching this upset about my original video, wondering what my intentions are with this upload, I'm not trying to destroy or replace you or network with your enemies. I don't know where this idea that criticism is hate was born. Criticism doesn't need some weird ulterior motive. My intentions with this channel have always been to create an audience of critically thinking people. I've been fighting irony, nonchalance, cringe, and above all else, brain off culture since my channel was born. If you don't like something, just keep it to yourself, just let people enjoy things, is probably the response I'll get from this. Because as a commentary creator, you're incentivized to have people not question the content you're feeding them. It would be easier if the critics just kept things to themselves. But I'll continue to be the person who criticizes my favorite books, my favorite artists, and the genre that I'm a part of, because on this channel, it's always that deep. Now for the original feel-good ending that I had written before.
Yeah, thought terminating cliches. That's an important sort of phrase that Ifemi highlighted earlier. Oh, that shit sucks. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, I hate these people. Thought terminating cliches, right? I thought this was a pretty solid video. I thought there were some definitely some issues that I had with it. But what I love about it, like I said, is the spunk. I love the sharpness. I love the willingness to critique. I could be a little bit more nitpicky and say, like, if you make a monologue at the end of your video talking about how critique is important and criticism is important, and like you'll never give up on like criticizing people, like it does kind of take you in the direction of defensiveness. You know, if you read a review criticizing the new Lady Gaga and Doechii music video, and at the end of it the author was like, and you know what, guys, it's really important to criticize artists. It's really important, and I'm never gonna give up on it, even if it gets people to hate on me and da da da. It does the same thing that irony padding does, or self-deprecation does. It's like the same thing but in a different way, where you're just like talking about the integrity and the importance of the thing that you're doing, and that doesn't have as much to do with then like, are you doing it very well? My evaluation, I think Doothi does it quite well here in certain ways, but I think they also have a lot of room for improvement. I'm gonna look at some of the comments really quick. Don't forget when they almost accidentally make an interesting point but say that's a topic for a separate video. The ification of commentary YouTube, not the commentary mafia, OMG. They criticize people for a living, they should be able to take it too. I think that shit is like really important. I think we are at a point where people are ready to have a kind of commentary YouTube revolution. I've seen some people say on different social media platforms before, like, oh, I think this is a great time period for YouTube to come alive again. I think people are talking about how they want to go back to long form content and to thinking interesting thoughts, you know, like YouTube content creators that make 20-30 minute essays that are not overly padded out and not just saying the obvious thing, but that are attention grabbing and striking and incorporate theory and are thoughtful, you know. That kind of thing, I think people are actually calling for more and more and saying like this is an era where that's going to come about. I believe that people are tired of like just short form content. I think it's had its day in a lot of ways. It'll always exist. There'll always be a place for it. But I think now that we're in a position where people know that they want better quality of content and they want to consume it more critically and thoughtfully, now that means that we got to criticize these spaces where these things are taking place, and we got to go out with the old, in with the new. We've got to flush some of that stuff out. We've got to flush the toxins out. It is more similar to a speech than an essay, as DRS says, because there's not really sources. I agree with that. Benny says that this video feels new gen in a good way, sincere with room for growth. I agree with that as well. It's very easy to sit back and say, this person's just hating. This person's just like saying things. This person's just like upset or annoyed about certain things and just venting about it. This person's a hater. There's a Reddit thread where people are talking about this a little bit, and they're like, I watched this video and I found it a bit ironic that it ended up feeling very similar to some of the exact things she was criticizing in the first place. I do agree that there are commentary creators that do the bare minimum and really have nothing new or insightful to say, and that some channels essentially just end up supporting the very thing they claim to dislike simply by engaging with that content and giving it attention. Also agree with all the annoying sponsorship ad rolls. That said, to me, commentary channels aren't the same as comedy/snark channels. I don't watch Chad videos because I think she has some kind of deep insight. I watch them because I enjoy her style of humor. There's nothing that Doothi says in this video that denies this, right? I don't really consider her a commentary channel like what D'Angelo or Jenny Nicholson. Jenny Nicholson's not a commentary channel. Jenny Nicholson's a Jenny Nicholson channel. Someone who makes funny videos that may sometimes have some commentary sprinkled in. I've seen a lot of comments to this degree. It's funny videos. Sometimes you need funny videos. Sometimes you need funny videos. Sometimes you need low effort videos. Sometimes you need videos that turn your brain off. Sometimes you need videos that make you laugh. She says this in the video. Doothi says this in the video. Y'all gotta change your style of attack. All this makes you sound is like defensive. You sound like you're just being defensive about content creators, especially when you're saying, oh, she just sounds like a hater, you know? Somebody says Jake Doolittle vibes. That's wild. This drama feels artificial as American bread. I mean, this is the YouTube drama subreddit, so I guess you guys aren't vibing. I could tell she was making bad faith arguments to stir up drama. It's just like, what are you talking about? She subtitled it, shut up, shut up, shut up, and claimed content is slop when multiple creators talk about the same subject, even going as far as to claim that it ruins the YouTube experience. This is ironically extremely bad faith, right? And you can see exactly what it is that makes people react this way. Oh, she subtitled it, shut up, shut up, shut up. She put certain people's faces in the thumbnail. I think if Doothi would have made a video that was like, commentary channels should be critiqued or something, and the thumbnail didn't say shut up, but it said, we can do better, and it didn't put any content creators in the thumbnail, just Doothi, I think people would have found it way less controversial and agreed with all these things that she said, right? Like these kinds of responses would not have happened, and the video would have gotten 40K views. Nobody would have passed it along. Doothi was willing to put Doothi's, name at stake. Doothi was willing to shake the table. Doothi was willing to be a critic. Doothi was willing to be a little bit mean. And the fact that somebody can be a little bit mean and that makes you guys invalidate their argument entirely. Oh, well, you shouldn't say shut up though. Or what? Or what? Like, oh, you shouldn't have put Curtis Connor in the thumbnail. You shouldn't have talked about Jarvis Johnson that way or whatever. These folks can be critiqued. These folks can be critiqued. If you actually love them in the parasocial way, and if you actually love them then in a healthy way, then you know that they should be critiqued. Because if you loved somebody in your real life and somebody criticized them, you would be like, well, that's something that should happen, Loving somebody is not saying you can't critique this person at all. Supporting somebody is not saying you can't critique this person at all. It's actually the opposite. It's actually unhealthy. It means there's a codependency happening. Okay, so while I think Doothi has some parts of this video that are worthy of some critique, there's some stuff I don't like about it. This is why I'm defending it, This is why I chose to talk about it, because it's like a lot of y'all have to grow up. Just the same way that a lot of these same channels that you've been coddling need to feel uncomfortable. They need to deal with discomfort and self-critique in order to make better stuff, and they're avoiding that. You guys, this is socially distributed. This is everywhere. People are way too averse to conflict, way too averse to feeling discomfort. Everything has to be said super respectfully. Everything has to be said in the neatest and nicest and most correct way. And then the problem doesn't change. And the idea that for whatever reason they were pressured to take it down, like whoever it was that told them to change the video or do XYZ, I get where they're coming from, because when you're in these groups and people are feeling uncomfortable about something, you don't want to risk your own connection with those people, lose friendships, you don't want to lose important collaborators, and you maybe genuinely just want the conversation to happen more fruitfully and respectfully. But at the end of the day, this has to exist. You need sharp critics. You need people who are willing to be a dick a little bit, because it's that deep and it's also not that deep. If somebody says, yo, Elliot's saying is ass, that's not that deep. And if somebody is saying that because they feel like what I do contributes to a problem in the world, then they should feel that way because it is that deep. Does that make sense? We'll close here. Also asks, Elliot, where would you say you have been critiqued and currently know you need to be critiqued on? I've been critiqued about, I was critiqued about my comments about figure skating in the recent video about male sports. And I addressed that in the next video a little bit by saying like, yeah, my original video, I was basically a little bit too dismissive of figure skating writ large as being like overly dominated by like points and unhealthy habits and people who are not actually artistically expressing themselves through the form. And I attributed too much of that changing to Alyssa Liu. And I think that was wrong. And I think that I could have done a better job of like making that point of like why Alyssa Liu is cool without being as dismissive and unresearched about figure skating. As far as things that I want to be critiqued on more, the reason critique is important is because, you know, it sheds light on blind spots. So if there's something that I need to be criticized on, I'm probably a little bit blind to it. But I always try to welcome critique from people from marginalized communities that I'm not a part of. And there is a fair share, like I said earlier, of critique that I come across that I'm like, I don't think this is it. I think y'all are stretching it. I think you guys are doing too much. Or not even just doing too much, but I just think you have misconceived what I've said. You have misinterpreted me. You have said something that I didn't say, you know? But that said, like, it's not about critique being bad. It's about one person getting something wrong. And I don't spend time, you know, I don't lose sleep over it. This was a 2-hour long raw footage. I need to take the rest of the day off.